The story begins with two sisters who saved up their money for a long time and finally bought an apartment together. They believed they were stepping into the start of a happy and stable life. What they did not know was that the home they worked so hard to purchase had a history that nobody told them about. Not long after moving in, the older sister Joo-hee begins to be slowly worn down by noise coming from somewhere above her. It never stops. It grinds at her patience day after day. Eventually, she decides to stick thick sponge pads across the ceiling to try to muffle it. She is almost done when the same irritating noise starts again from upstairs. Frustrated and fed up, Joo-hee takes out her camcorder and starts recording the sound, planning to use the footage as evidence when she goes to confront whoever is responsible. But then a strange grinding sound comes from the direction of the balcony. She pauses. The phone rings. She sets the camcorder down on the table, pointed toward the balcony, and answers the call. Nobody speaks on the other end. Then, a loud crash from upstairs knocks out all the lights in the apartment. They come back on a moment later. Joo-hee looks at the ceiling, listens to the noise continuing above her, and decides she has had enough. She is going upstairs to say something directly. She does not notice that a woman's shadow has appeared on the balcony behind her. The grinding sound rings out once more, and just like that, Joo-hee is gone. 4 days pass. Her company notices she has not come in and has not been in contact. They call the police. The police track down her younger sister, Joo-young, who has been staying at the company dormitory because of long overtime hours. She has not spoken to Joo-hee in several days. When she arrives at the apartment, she finds a note stuck on the front door telling the residents to keep quiet inside the house. She walks in and finds the living room completely disordered and her sister's bedroom in a total mess. She tries calling Joo-hee immediately. The phone is switched off. Joo-young stands there trying to piece it together. She remembers how Joo-hee used to complain constantly about the noise from upstairs. But Joo-young has hearing problems and cannot hear anything clearly without her hearing aid. She had never really understood the toll it was taking on her sister. She had even told Joo-hee that since they had already bought the apartment, they needed to just adapt to it. That response had left Joo-hee completely speechless. Joo-young goes to Joo-hee's workplace and asks her closest colleague, a man named Ki-hoon, if he knows anything. Ki-hoon tells her that whenever he spoke to Joo-hee on the phone, she would always ask if he could hear strange noises in the background. He never could. He had no idea what she was talking about. Joo-young returns to the apartment and finds her sister's phone lying dead and switched off on a surface inside. This is deeply wrong. Joo-hee took her phone everywhere. She never left it behind. Joo-young bends down to pick up the charging cable from the floor and notices something else. A large dark mold stain spreading across the ground. Before she can think about it, someone knocks at the door. The visitor is the man from apartment 504 below them, a man named Jung-sim. He has come to tell them to keep the noise down. Joo-young explains that nobody has been home for days, and there could not possibly be any noise coming from their unit. Jung-sim does not listen. His eyes are flat and cold. He tells her that if the noise continues, he will tear her mouth apart. Then he leaves. As Joo-young watches him go, she notices a woman with long, dark hair standing completely motionless at the end of the hallway. She slams the door shut and locks it. She charges her sister's phone but does not know the password. The next day, she visits the security office. The guard confirms that Joo-hee had come to complain about noise some time ago, but he has not seen her since. He mentions that apartment 604, their apartment, tends to draw extra attention from the neighbors. He is about to say something more about the history of 604 when a woman comes rushing over to report a foul smell rising from the basement. The guard opens the basement door and a wave of thick stench pours out. He explains that for 10 years, some residents have been dumping rubbish down there. The door was locked, but people were still throwing garbage through the window. Clearing it out would cost an enormous amount, and nobody was willing to pay for it, so the mess simply kept building. Joo-young quits her job and moves back into the apartment so she can focus entirely on finding her sister. That day happens to be her birthday. She sits at the table surrounded by kimchi and feels the absence of Joo-hee completely. Every year on her birthday, Joo-hee would make plenty of it because she knew how much Joo-young loved it. Sitting there alone, she suddenly thinks of something. She picks up her sister's phone and types in her own birthday as the password. It works. Inside, she finds a long list of recordings. She plays one at random, and a loud crash immediately fills her ears through the hearing aid. She cannot tell if it is coming from upstairs or from the recording itself. She sits in the bedroom and keeps listening. She hears her sister's voice, strained and desperate, full of complaints that were clearly building for a long time. Then she hears something else underneath it. Another voice, quiet and indistinct. She cannot make out the words, but it sounds close. as though it is right beside her. She looks around. The room is empty. Then she hears what sounds like her sister whispering directly in her ear and throws the phone across the room in fright. The doorbell rings. From outside comes a voice repeating the same sentence over and over. It sounds like Ju-hee. Ju-young does not open the door. She looks through the peephole instead. The figure outside has darkened pupils. That is not her sister. A grinding noise starts and mixes with a sharp, piercing sound that tears through her hearing aid and sends her collapsing to the floor. The next moment, she jerks awake. She cannot tell if any of what just happened was real. Ki-hoon comes to visit. During the conversation, it comes out that he and Ju-hee had actually been in a secret relationship for 6 months. He has not been able to reach her for days and came hoping Ju-young might know something. Together, they go to the local district office. An official there tells them that months earlier, the previous woman living in apartment 604 had complained repeatedly about noise and had told people she was seeing ghosts. A few days after the last complaint, a foul smell was reported coming from her unit. She had hanged herself inside. Ju-young sits with that information. She goes home and imagines herself eating at the same table, in the same apartment, and the knowledge that a body once hung in that space sends a deep chill through her that does not leave. Ki-hoon comes back with her, and another large note is fixed to the front door with the same message about keeping quiet inside. Ju-young assumes it is Jung-sim from below. Ki-hoon starts making missing person flyers for Ju-hee. The police call, and Ju-young reports Jung-sim's threat to them. She insists that her sister's disappearance is connected to him. The police check the surveillance camera near the building and discover that Ju-hee never left the building at all. Her phone and her wallet are still inside the apartment. She simply vanished within the walls of the building. The doorbell rings again, and this time it is Jung-sim at the door. Ki-hoon answers it, and Jung-sim, seeing a man, shifts his expression immediately. He glances past Ki-hoon into the apartment, clearly aware that Ju-young is inside. He asks them politely to please keep the noise down and leaves without another word. Back at the door of apartment 504, Jung-sim takes out a knife he has hidden nearby. The constant noise has been grinding away at him for so long that it has pushed him close to breaking. Ju-young continues posting the missing person flyers around the building. She notices a small boy crouching and staring at the basement window. She goes over and crouches down to look too. The boy gets up and walks away. Ju-young takes out her flashlight to see what is there. At that moment, a woman appears behind her. It is Jong-in from apartment 804. She tells Ju-young firmly that she needs to stop putting missing person flyers around the complex. There is a major redevelopment vote happening, and the head of the residence committee will not tolerate anything that might spread rumors or damage the area's reputation. If the redevelopment approval falls through, housing prices will collapse. She is very serious about this. At home that night, Ju-young stares at the flyer with her sister's face on it. The door lock clicks, and the door opens, and Ju-hee walks in. Without thinking, Ju-young runs to embrace her. Ju-hee shoves her away without a word and goes straight to her bedroom. Ju-young follows immediately and walks into an empty room. Then she hears a sound from the living room. It is another nightmare. She goes to the kitchen for water, and through the window catches a glimpse of what looks like a figure standing on the balcony. Before she can move, the sound of someone repeatedly entering a door code comes from outside. Jung-sim is trying to get in. The shadow on the balcony is gone. Ju-young grabs a kitchen knife, steps out onto the balcony, and checks every corner. Nothing there. She looks through the peephole. Jung-sim is gone. She exhales slowly. By now, Jung-sim has completely lost his ability to function normally. He is going floor by floor through the building, trying to locate the source of the noise. He shouts in the hallway in frustration. As he turns, he sees something staring at him from the upper corner of a doorway. The motion sensor light switches on. He looks more closely and starts running, glancing back as he goes, until he runs straight through a glass panel and falls to his death. Ju-young hears the police sirens the next morning and goes downstairs. Jung-sim is dead. The officer she has been dealing with comes to her side. She immediately tells him to search apartment 504 for her sister. The police have already searched and found nothing. No sign of anyone being held there. They begin to suggest gently that the stress of her sister's disappearance may be affecting her judgment. The head of the residence committee also appears and tells Ju-young that she is damaging the community with her behavior and needs to stop. Ju-young goes to apartment 804 to find Jong-in. A small girl runs past in the hallway, and Jong-in explains it is her daughter. Jong-in then tells Ju-young the history of what happened to the woman who used to live in apartment 704. That woman had always accused the resident of 804 of making noise. To prove her point, she stood on a chair and banged the ceiling of 704 with a frying pan. The man who lived in 604 at the time was driven into a rage by the sound, broke into 704, and attacked the woman with a hammer. Then he fled. The woman did not die immediately. In her final moments, she kept pounding the walls and floors trying to get help, and the sound of her grinding teeth echoed through the walls. The neighbors all assumed it was just more noise and ignored it. When her body was finally discovered, the residents agreed to keep everything quiet so the redevelopment vote would not be affected. The man from 604 disappeared and was never seen again. Ju Young asks who lives in 704 now, because the noise coming from there is constant. Jung-in tells her the apartment has been completely empty since the woman died. Ju Young goes home shaken. There is another note on her door. She had always assumed Jung Sim was leaving them, but Jung Sim is dead. Someone else is behind it. She tears the note down. Beneath it, carved directly into the surface of the door in dried blood, are words telling her to go to hell. At the redevelopment meeting, Ju Young walks through the crowd and spots one of her sister's missing person flyers on the floor being stepped on. Something snaps inside her. She pushes to the front of the room, pulls the microphone from the chairman, and shouts into the crowd that her sister disappeared inside this complex, and she does not care about redevelopment or housing prices. She only wants her sister back. The two of them argue loudly until other residents pull them apart. Ki-hoon appears and takes Ju Young away from the meeting. He tells her something important. He has been checking surveillance records, and there is no record anywhere of the man who used to live in 604 ever leaving the building. He may still be somewhere inside the complex. Ju Young immediately thinks of the basement. The smell down there was so overwhelming that nobody ever fully searched it. They go down together and split up to look through the piles of rubbish. Ki-hoon moves through the space with his camcorder recording. He finds a shadow in the far corner. He steadies himself and looks closer. The figure lying on the ground is the man from apartment 604. Ki-hoon tries to get closer to check if he is still breathing. Then a piercing noise blasts through his ears, and the man's severed head rolls across the floor and stops at Ki-hoon's feet. Ju Young finds nothing in her section and goes to meet Ki-hoon. Something is immediately wrong with him. Before she can understand what has happened, a shrieking noise tears through her own ears. She watches Ki-hoon's body jolt violently. She steps back. Ki-hoon lunges at her and knocks her to the floor. She calls his name again and again. He does not respond. His eyes are blank and full of intent to harm. Ju Young grabs a stone from the floor and hits him in the head. She breaks free and sprints for the ladder leading out of the basement. Ki-hoon grabs her legs from below as she climbs. In that exact moment, the head of the residence committee appears above and pulls Ju Young free. She wakes up in the property management office with her wounds cleaned and bandaged. She cannot believe who saved her. The head of the residence committee tells her she happened to be passing the basement and saw what was happening and called the police. The two women begin to talk properly for the first time. Ju Young mentions that in the entire complex, she has only seen two children, the head's son and the little girl she saw in Jong-in's apartment. The head of the committee looks at her blankly and says that Jong-in does not have a daughter. The police call. Ju Young goes to the basement entrance and learns that Ki-hoon is dead. She tells the officers she remembers seeing a metal door somewhere inside the basement and believes her sister might be locked behind it. The police tell her they searched the whole space and found no such door. They warn her strongly not to go back inside and suggest she needs to rest and speak to someone about what she has been through. Ju Young goes in alone anyway. Inside, she finds Ju-hee's camcorder sitting in the rubbish. She plays the footage. One of the recordings shows Ju-hee entering apartment 804, where several vibration machines have been set up across the floor. The noise was never coming from somewhere mysterious or supernatural. Jong-in created it deliberately using machines. The video captures something else as well. Jong-in speaking in a motherly tone of voice to someone who is not visible in the frame. Nobody else is there. And then the footage shows Ju-hee realizing what she is watching. She starts to pull back, but it is already too late. Jong-in throws her to the ground and smashes a cup into her head. Ju Young searches deeper into the basement and hears a faint sound. She follows it and finds her sister crumpled in a corner, barely conscious, barely alive. She pulls Ju-hee close and starts moving toward the exit, but Jong-in is already waiting at the top of the stairs, smiling, a hammer in her hand. Ju Young turns and leads her sister in a different direction through the basement. They circle around, but there is no other way out. She hides Ju-hee in a dark corner and goes back to face Jong-in alone. Jong-in talks as she approaches. She tells Ju Young that the woman from 704 is also dead because of her. The woman had always complained that Jong-in's daughter was running and making noise upstairs. So Jong-in had let the girl go and play downstairs one afternoon. A delivery truck hit her in the road. Jong-in decided the woman from 704 was responsible for her daughter's death. so she made her pay for it. Jong-in moves closer with the hammer and Ju-young runs. She finds a temporary hiding spot and crouches in the dark. The grinding noise starts again, along with the piercing shriek. Unable to take it any longer, Ju-young pulls out her hearing aid and the world goes completely silent. Then Jong-in appears directly in front of her. The hammer comes down on Ju-young's back. She falls. Jong-in climbs on top of her and raises the hammer for the final blow. Then the grinding noise comes again. The distraction is just enough. Ju-young breaks free and runs. She gets to a door and tries to pull it shut. Jong-in is right behind her, grabbing the edges, pleading suddenly with Ju-young to help her and save her life. But in pulling the door, Ju-young accidentally looks up and meets the eyes of the dead woman from apartment 704 standing in the shadows. The sight freezes her completely. She cannot look up again. She pulls the door shut with Jong-in on the other side. Jong-in begins hammering on the iron door with her bare hands, just like the woman from 704 did in her final moments when nobody came for her. But everyone in the building above will hear it and think it is just more noise. Nobody will come. Ju-young gets her sister out of the basement. The two of them make it out together. Days later, a new tenant has moved into apartment 704. She comes to visit Ju-young with gifts. Puzzled about who might have left 2 packages at her door, she introduces herself and promises to be careful about making any noise from upstairs. Ju-young looks at her and accepts the visit quietly, knowing everything that happened in the rooms directly above and below her, and everything the walls of this building have absorbed over the years.